every single player.
You know, partly what I'm doing is I'm going around the room with people who bought in a lot to just prove that I'm not the only crazy person here. How many bullets have you spent, sir?
9.
Okay, you're in for 6, I'm in for 7. Carrie, you're in for 3.
Unlimited.
Unlimited, baby!
7.
4? 7. Are you crazy?
Imagine a poker tournament with a $72 million guarantee, but that astronomical guarantee was built on the backs of a system that's quietly rewriting the rules of poker in favor of the wealthy. This is the story of unlimited re-entries, a system that's become so pervasive in modern poker that most players don't even question it anymore. But they should, because what started as a courtesy to unlucky players has evolved into something that fundamentally challenges what we even mean by fairness in poker tournaments. Last year in December, the poker world descended on the Bahamas for what was billed as the most prestigious poker tournament in history, the $25,000 super main event with a guaranteed prize pool of $60 million, which later crossed $72 million. This wasn't some bubble tournament at a local card room. This was the WSOP, the gold standard of poker legitimacy, hosting what they called their super main event with marquee players flying in from across the globe. Daniel Negreanu, one of the biggest names in poker and a player who openly admits he's uncomfortable with unlimited re-entries, walked into the tournament and just 5 hours later had re-entered 6 times, totaling for $150,000. He finally ran good with his 6th attempt, doubled up quickly and bagged his chips. The next day, he re-entered 4 more times, eventually busting at 286th place for $55,000. Stephen Chidwick re-entered 13 times, with the highest being Michael Munkek with 14 entries, and busted out, leaving with only a $50,000 and $70,000 cash prize for their efforts respectively. Think about that number. That's more than $250,000 of buy-ins, and despite that massive investment, they left with a 5-figure return. Other notable players were James Hopkins, who bought in 13 times, Jesse Lonis 12 times, and Sean Deeb 9 times. This isn't an isolated anecdote. This is the new normal in poker. So why did this happen? For decades, poker tournaments were freeze-outs. You bought in, you played your best poker, and if you ran out of chips, you went home and waited for the next tournament. The stakes were clean and simple. Everyone got exactly the same opportunity, played in the same structural conditions, and the best player would theoretically emerge victorious. Then the internet happened. Online poker sites realized something crucial. Tournaments with re-entries generated absolutely massive prize pools because players kept buying back in over and over again. A $10 freeze-out tournament might have 5,000 players, but a $10 tournament with unlimited re-entries could have 20,000 re-entries across 10,000 players because half the field would be re-entering multiple times. Live poker eventually noticed this, and quickly the poker industry made a calculation. Prize pool growth versus tournament integrity. Prize pool growth won decisively. The rich player advantage. Here's where the ethics of the situation start to fall apart. In unlimited re-entry tournaments, especially those with long registration periods and multiple starting flights, there is a mathematical advantage that accrues almost entirely to wealthy players with sufficient bankrolls. Think about it logically. If you are a skilled professional with a 7-figure bankroll, unlimited re-entries is essentially a gift. You can re-enter multiple times until you can simply improve your results through volume. But what if you are a recreational player? What if you have saved $25,000 to take a shot at the WSOP? You make a mistake early, get unlucky with coolers, and suddenly your entire tournament aspirations for the year are gone. Meanwhile, the professional player next to you who has 0 chips has just bought back in for the 7th time.
How many bullets have you spent, sir?
9.
9 bullets?
9.
Okay, you're in for 6, I'm in for 7. Carrie, you're in for 3. How many bullets are you in?
Unlimited.
Unlimited, baby.
7 bullets. Are you crazy? How many are you in?
7.
How many bullets? Nit.
Very, very reasonable.
4?
Yeah.
My God.
Research compiled by poker analysts and strategists show that in unlimited re-entry tournaments, top players dominate the final tables to a significantly greater extent than they do in freeze-out tournaments. This is not because they're better players. Well, they are technically, but the difference is usually not that dramatic. It's because they can afford to keep playing until variance works in their favor. They are essentially buying equity in the tournament in a way that recreational players simply cannot do. One poker analyst phrased it perfectly. Each buy-in is just a new entry to that tournament, so there is no real commutation taking place. Those players are just being allowed to increase their volume, which of course everyone is welcome to do. But when you analyze the data, it is an option mostly availed by two somewhat overlapping groups: the professional players, who consider every entry to be plus EV, and the wealthy players for whom the money is of no concern. The hidden costs no one talks about. There is something even more insidious happening beneath the surface, and most players never even realize it occurring. Very long re-entry periods penalize the players who play from the start by allowing last-minute entries to capitalize on the fact that by the time they enter, a substantial percentage of the field has already busted, and their chances of at least min-cashing are accordingly inflated. Modeling these last-minute entries with ICM suggests that they are often worth 3 to 5% ROI, occasionally as much as 10%, just as a reward for waiting until a lot of the field has already busted before entering the tournament. A growing chorus of criticism. The poker community isn't blind to these problems, and criticism is mounting. Industry figures and analysts are starting to speak out about the long-term costs of unlimited re-entries for the integrity of poker tournaments and the health of the poker ecosystem. The consensus emerging from thoughtful observers is nuanced. Unlimited re-entries at small buy-ins and side events can be tolerable, but for main events and championship tournaments, the events that carry prestige and are supposed to crown legitimate champions, unlimited re-entries are becoming increasingly indefensible. The argument is straightforward. Yes, unlimited re-entries generate larger prize pools, but at what cost? If the cost is that a $25,000 tournament is no longer a test of poker skill, but rather a test of who has the deepest pockets, then something fundamental has been lost. The WSOP's role in normalizing the problem. The WSOP has embraced what one industry observer called, hypothetically, infinite registration. At the recent WSOP Europe alone, there were 13 re-entry events and just 2 freeze-outs across an entire European series. This is striking because it represents how far the poker industry has drifted from tournament structures of even 15 years ago. When the gold standard of the game has decided that unlimited re-entries are acceptable, it signals to the entire industry that this is now normal, this is acceptable, this is fine. Why poker organizers don't care. To understand why unlimited re-entries have become so ubiquitous despite their problems, you have to follow the money. Poker tournament organizers profit directly from re-entries through rake. But here's the reality check. Organizers can justify even higher rake on re-entry tournaments because the prize pools are so much larger. Players accept the rake because the first place prize or the overall prize pool is more impressive. It's a win-win for the organizer: more entries, more rake, larger advertised prize pool, happier players looking at bigger numbers. Professional poker players and wealthy players also benefit financially from unlimited re-entries because, as mentioned, it allows them to buy volume and edges that recreational players cannot afford. The only party left out of this equation is the recreational player and the integrity of the game itself. The future of poker tournaments. The question now is whether the poker community will eventually push back against unlimited re-entries in major events, or whether this becomes the permanent new normal. Some players like Daniel Negreanu have acknowledged the problem intellectually while simultaneously exploiting it in practice. The tragedy is that poker as a game and a cultural institution arguably loses something in this transition. When Daniel Negreanu is calling the experience normal, something about the authenticity of the competition is diluted.
And what I want to say is this. Every single player would have been in, or we wouldn't stop and go, oh, you know what? 5 bullets, yeah, it's not our day, we're gonna quit. No, they all play, you know what I mean? I would bet that I won't be the player with the most buy-ins in this tournament. Like, I think someone's gonna be in for 10 to 15, you know? Hopefully it's not us.
Potential solutions. A potential solution might look something like this. In championship tournaments and main events, cap re-entries at 1 or 2 per flight. Preserve the benefit of larger prize pools by allowing players to buy in multiple starting flights, but eliminate the ability to re-enter unlimited times throughout the tournament. Alternatively, some have proposed a progressive re-entry structure. Your first re-entry costs the standard buy-in, but each subsequent re-entry costs progressively more. This preserves the option to re-enter for players who want it while creating a natural break on unlimited re-entries. A game at the crossroads. Unlimited re-entries in poker tournaments represent a fundamental philosophical shift in how the game is played. What used to be a test of poker skill has become a test of who can afford to keep buying back. Daniel Negreanu and Chidwick re-entering 10 and 13 times respectively is not a bug in the system. It's a feature. It's exactly what the structure is designed to incentivize. The question is whether that's a feature that's good for poker's future, or whether we have optimized ourselves into a corner where the game is becoming less about skill and more about bankroll depth. In the end, that's a question that only the poker community itself can answer. But one thing is for certain, if the game continues down this path, the days when a recreational player could credibly compete for a major tournament championship are numbered.